Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness.
Ooh, one of those days, huh?
One of those days. Yep. Welcome to another episode of GeekVerse Podcast, Weekly Geek. I am one of your hosts, the profitable for Frito-Lay Taylor Field. I'm joined by...
Oh, I love that nickname. I am the powerhouse, Dylan Moss.
Yes, and we got a whole whack load of content to talk about today. It's going to be mostly Marvel-centric with a little bit of trailer discussions at the end of the episode, but before we get into all of that juicy goodness, a couple of plugs. You can find us with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerseCast is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook. Be sure to check us out on the Patreon where you can get ad-free, exclusive, early content and episodes available there. It is a good time. On top of that, we got to shout out these fine folks. We got Aaron Braden. I almost did a Travis there. April of Darkness, Joshua Wright. You folks are helping us not only like keep our lights on 100% of the time, but just keeping the show afloat at
You're keeping your lights
too.
on 100% of the time? Turn them off. You can save some power, save some money. Come on. What are you doing, Taylor?
Yeah. But thank you so much for all your kindness and support. It's unfathomable. And again, just thank you to everyone that's just tuning into the Geekverse as of late. Dylan, now we did some cool stuff. We want to share it with the listeners out there.
Yes, last night we had a nice full house for the Hogwarts Legacy review. That was a good time. Good 2-hour long discussion. So yeah, go check that out. We pretty much talked about everything about the game, so that was a good time.
Additionally, on the topic of games, we are reviewing the Last of Us series weekly. Tune in Sunday nights after the episodes, and you can catch us talking about the details, specifics, the cameos, Easter eggs, all that jazz. On top of that, we did an Ant-Man Quantumania review that dropped on the feeds a week ago. And what else is kind of cooking up soon? I guess we got John Wick 4 creeping around the corner.
That's
We got
creeping.
the retros on the Patreon early. Same with the X-Men animated series. Those are available super early on the Patreon as well. Oh, Mandalorian, that's actually going to be coming back in 8 days, I believe now, with season 3. And then, Bad Batch is another one, because I'm doing batches of 4 episodes.
That's a bad batch right there.
That's a bad batch, yeah. So I've done part 1 and a part 2 for the first 8 episodes, and then we are getting into, I think, this week I'll have another one dropping for the next batch of 4 episodes. So yeah, tune into that. But I think other than that, unless you have anything else you want to sprinkle in there, I think that's it.
I'm sprinkle this. Let's do it.
Okay, so our first big topic of the night is the Avengers Kang Dynasty rumored lineup. When I saw this, I got super giddy. I thought this is just a fantastic roster and not at all what I was expecting. I thought we were going to be getting something different, but first off, we got Spider-Man. Secondly, Shang-Chi. Third, Captain Marvel. 4, Shuri. 5, She-Hulk. 6, Ant-Man. 7, Captain America. And 8, Moon Knight. Now, I'm very curious to know your thoughts on each one of these members being an Avenger.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, if we look at it in terms of who was already there, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, and I guess you'd say Captain America, right? This is obviously Sam, not my God, Steve Rogers. I can't remember his name. And then I guess Ant-Man, you'd throw him in there too. So half the team makes sense, and in terms of composition, I guess that seems like a pretty good way to go about it in terms of structure. Let's do half of kind of returning characters, half new characters. So all of those seem to make sense. And then Shang-Chi, that's the softball. That's an easy one. Shuri, maybe a bit unexpected, but because of how things have gone in the world of Black Panther, that makes sense to slot that in there. She-Hulk makes sense as well. That character seems like they want that to be a big deal. And then, I think the huge curveball for me out of this group is Moon Knight. Just because we've been very uncertain as to what the future of that character is going to be. Of course, the end of that season, the post-credit, end credit, whatever it was, had a teaser for, this is what the next season could be, but it didn't have that Moon Knight will return banner that we've got in so many projects, right? That we even had in Kang Dynasty recently. So, yeah, I guess that's the weird one for me, is what's going to happen with him? Is he getting another season first? If not, what's the bridge between Moon Knight Season 1 to him being in the Avengers lineup for the next big movie? Even just for like the audience, I feel like to understand that for the people who aren't the super fans, who aren't watching all that Disney Plus content. Whereas She-Hulk, someone who just makes more sense instinctively, you kind of know what's going on there. So yeah, that was to me the curveball. But I feel like this is a like not 100%, but this is a very much a Taylor lineup. So I feel like you said you're giddy, but yeah, this is a really good lineup for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, I see these names and I am just eating it up. Again, I thought we were going to be getting characters like Miss Marvel and is it Hawk Girl? Is that what she is? Or just the new Hawkeye? I think it's the new Hawkeye, right? For Kate Bishop.
I thought you said hot girl for a second. I'm like, oh my god, who's that? Yeah, I think just Kate Bishop, at least in the MCU. I feel like she doesn't have a hero name, or maybe there is some tease at the end of the season where they say something, but I'm going with Kate Bishop for now in terms of the name. But
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was imagining. Like, and maybe that's more like no, that's going to be Young Avengers. It's going to be its own separate project. When I think, okay, core main adult Avengers. Yeah, you got Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, like Captain Marvel, Ant-Man. I was not expecting to see Ant-Man in this list, but
why not?
I just felt like, okay, like would the torch not be kind of passed off? Like, I just, with spoilers, go see Quantumania, then come back. I felt like he was really just wanting to kind of get out of it, maybe get out of the superhero gig a little bit.
Oh, I totally disagree. Because to me, that's like where the movie, once again, yeah, spoilers. That's where the movie starts, but by the end of it, I feel like just the dynamic with him and his daughter and going on this adventure, changing his mind, but also the kind of existential crisis he's having at the end of that movie, where he's like, okay, we did not save the day, maybe. Like, obviously it is ambiguous. He's kind of playing it back and forth. But to me, that's like definitely a setup. And also, once again, we talked about this on the review, but the writer of Ant-Man Quantumania is the writer for Kang Dynasty. So to me, in that way, it makes a lot of sense that the same writer, you would want to work on that character again. He's got a bit of rapport. He's figured out that character a little bit. Obviously did the Kang stuff as well. So to me, Ant-Man like had to be on the roster. And yeah, he's like become a lot more popular now too. I mean, even the opening weekend for Quantumania was like huge. You know, people love that character a lot more now. I think the Endgame effect did a lot for that character in terms of where he was from the first two movies to now he's like kind of an A tier kind of character, or at least A minus tier, you know, like very much in that echelon.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that, actually, because I totally forgot that he had that like narrative, like talking to himself, like, oh, things will be fine at the end of the movie. Yeah, that lines up now for sure.
And I have a ton of characters that I'm very curious about. I want to pick your brain about. So first, just in terms of OG Avengers, of which we have none on the list, right? Obviously, some are gone. But yeah, like Hulk and Thor, right? What about them? Why would they not be? Because Hulk, you know, obviously She-Hulk's done her thing, but I feel like that was not necessarily a pass the torch moment of like him retiring or something. He's still around. And as far as we know, he's like on Earth where most of these characters, if not all of them, are going to be. You would think at the start of Kang Dynasty. And then Thor as well. I forget, where is that scene of him in love at the end of the movie? Are they on Earth when they're like going out to crush some bad guys? Remember that, like they exit the spaceship and then they go and like fight some guys on the beach or something?
I don't think they were.
Yeah, okay. So that maybe he's elsewhere and that kind of explains that away. But at least, I mean, why would you think he'd not be part of it? And how about Hulk as well?
Hulk, yeah, that's interesting because he's with Scar, like his son, on Earth. So he's actively with Jennifer Walters. Like, it just makes sense. Like, he would be there, unless even then, like, he's very involved with Shang-Chi and Wong and what's going on with the 10 rings, right? So I'm sure we'll get some explanation. My only thought is like, okay, do they kill him? He doesn't make it here. Now, when we get to Thor, I'm wondering how many more like continuations we're going to get with Thor and his kind of narrative. Like, I think we might see Thor appear in other variants, other forms and storylines, especially because we're getting that with Loki. But this linear Thor that we've had since phase 1, yeah, that's tricky.
Well, that's a good point too, because with the way that we know that there's going to be a connection between Loki and, well, obviously there already is a connection between Loki and Kang. There's going to be more of that in season 2. So you would think by the time Kang Dynasty, at the very latest Secret Wars, Loki is going to get back intertwined into this kind of 616 universe, you could say. And you need them to have a Thor Loki interaction, right? Like, that would seem like a total miss to not have that, unless they're like playing the long con on it and they want us to wait for that interaction to happen again even longer. So that seems like an even weirder thing of like, wow, why would Thor not be included there? And then throwing some other characters out, like you mentioned Miss Marvel. I guess we could talk about this, where, you know, there's been a lot of talk of, maybe some rumors, but also just people thinking that, okay, they're doing a lot of work to set up a potential Young Avengers thing, right? And maybe it wouldn't be called that, but that sort of team. And people also thought, okay, Spider-Man would make sense to be on that team. He's kind of one that I think he's such a big character that they could, dip in both wells, have him in both teams. But yeah, like why, especially if Captain Marvel's on the team for Kang Dynasty, her and Miss Marvel are probably going to be besties by in that movie, I would imagine. Why would she be omitted? That to me seemed like a strange one to not be included on that list.
Well, it is strange, and then I'm also thinking like Monica Rambeau
her
should
too.
have like she should definitely be on this list. I would say above Miss Marvel, just because Miss Marvel would probably be that spearhead for Young Avengers show. But Monica Rambeau, like she's coming in the Marvels movie that's going to be dropping soon
Yep.
this year, and just to not have her like not in this rumored lineup is very peculiar. It's very odd. Like Captain Marvel. Because she can get Captain Marvel too. She got the main movie. She's getting this, and then she was in both Avengers films. Yeah, that's peculiar.
There's a few other characters for me. The wizards, Doctor Strange or Wong, because Wong, once again, he's been set up in a way that seems like he's maybe the one that integrates Shang-Chi into the greater storyline of the MCU. So it seems like you would think we'd get a scene of him existing, and he is a good conduit for that. He is still the Sorcerer Supreme, right? Doctor Strange, that one could be explained away with like a dark dimension thing, which is kind of the teaser at the end of Multiverse of Madness. So maybe he's just off and he's like unreachable, and that's happening during the events of that. And then Secret Wars is when you get the reintroduction of him. But it does seem weird to me that there is no Sorcerer Supreme, or I guess just any wizard character. You mentioned Kate Bishop, which that makes me just wonder too, like, what is the future of that character at this point, man? Like, when is she going to pop up again? There's been no talk of like I guess there has been some rumors at some points of a Hawkeye season 2, but none of those that are like A tier. Yeah,
very
none of them are
likely.
Yeah, like that just seems like, what is she gonna do then? Like, where does she show up if not a Kang Dynasty kind of thing? And then the last ones for me that seemed kind of weird. Wasp, really weird omission if Wasp is not on that lineup. I think that was kind of somewhat to do with the story of not even just Quantumania, but even in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Though she's talking about that, she's obviously in that Endgame scenario. And then some of the new characters, an Ironheart, Echo, Daredevil, Blade, Stature. I think that's the name of Cassie's like superhero name, right? But at the out of all those, like at least Ironheart, would she not be one they kind of want over on that Avengers lineup?
I would think so. Unless, like, maybe he's not listed here, but maybe War Machine makes a pop up in there or something.
Yeah.
It is very, very peculiar. To kind of like back up what you said there, like S-Bubs in the chat, I feel like Doctor Strange or some magic user is missing from this team, but I guess it makes sense to focus on these characters, especially since they're going to be a million people in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
So,
That's where I guess I'm wondering too, like, what's the scale of specifically Kang Dynasty going to be based on that storyline? You'd think it'd be pretty big. But there's already, from what we've heard, going to be so much going on in Secret Wars. Beyond just what that storyline is, we've heard, okay, that's going to be the Jackman moment. You're going to get Toby back, that kind of thing. So it's like, how much do you want to push like the MCU established characters down the road into that movie for them to appear again? Like, I feel like Kang Dynasty is a good time for that to be really the MCU's moment to shine, and then Secret Wars is when you can get really weird. You can throw a Nick Cage in there. You can throw, Jackman will be Deadpool. He'll be in 616. Or maybe not. It'll be some weird thing going on there. But yeah, so I wonder, like, what's going on with Wasp? Like, why is Wasp not like immediately put in this lineup? And maybe this lineup we're seeing here is like, okay, these are like the A tier, the main characters, and we'll get some of those other assistant cast. But yeah, like there are definitely some glaring omissions that I'm curious to see. Like Miss Marvel, that one once again could be explained in that movie where she is, why she wouldn't be in that tier of thing. Maybe it's even Captain Marvel wanting to protect her or something like that. But it really makes no sense that Wasp wouldn't be joining the team for this outing, or Hulk, or Ironheart. Once again, I got to see that show and what her storyline truly is, since we've only got a glimpse so far. But yeah, like I'd say Wong, Wasp, and Hulk are maybe the three for me that are like, where are they? Those need to show up and be a part of the team, or else I'm gonna be having some questions.
Espo's back in the chat. Either this list isn't complete, or this is just the official Avengers team, but there'll be more people involved in the action. I could see that kind of
that's a
being
good way
like
to put it.
the end game equivalent where you have like your main Avengers, and then like Captain America doesn't know all these names, so he's just like assemble. You got every single person.
Random green guy. Yeah, that
Yeah.
could be a thing. I mean, we've even seen with as early as earlier, or I guess it was last year at this point when we got that roster for who the Thunderbolts are going to be. And then we've gotten rumors recently that, maybe Ghost is not part of that lineup. So even official lineups can, of course, change, lose characters, add characters. So if this is just like a rumor, and it's not even like an A-tier scoop rumor, right? Like obviously things could change. So those would be my biggest questions in terms of this. Maybe this is a good place to start, though. Like, okay, this is what they're looking at as the core team, and they'll fill it out. But these are maybe the characters who are essential. Like maybe someone like a Wasp is in there, but her part of the story is so minimal that if they cut her from the movie, it's like not really that big of a difference. Whereas if you were to cut She-Hulk, it's like, okay, now we have to change everything because it's not connecting in terms of how we want the story to go. So it could be one of those things too, where these are just the quote unquote essential characters. The other ones would be the bonuses.
I kind of suspect that if this lineup of characters, they are all chosen because of something they can incorporate to the story to further that story. Like you said, having She-Hulk in here, changing things up. Like if you remove her, then it changes the story dynamic. And I use this as a kind of a segue into Moon Knight. I'm assuming that there might be some thing that Moon Knight is capable of, or something very relevant to his character that will be able to help push the overall story forward to some minute degree. But I'm with you. Like, we need something between now and then, because we know Jake Lockley, he just popped up in an end credit scene. Like, what's going on with him? This personality. There's so much more we got to explore here. So,
and that's a lot to tackle when you have a movie that is as much a heavy hitter as Kang Dynasty will be. Where's the screen time to do storylines like that? That's the big one. Like, out of the other characters on the roster, who is Moon Knight's conduit into the team? I don't see it easily. And obviously, me and you aren't the comic book hardcores where we haven't read 100 different Kang Dynasty iterations, so we don't necessarily know how some of these things come to be. But yeah, that is definitely a bit of a curveball character.
yeah, like if you look at everyone on this list, I don't know anyone who would know who Moon Knight is, and I just feel like it'd be a really funny. They could do it. They could pull a Homecoming thing, or Far From Home, sorry, where you have a Jake Gyllenhaal just in the background of what was a scene from Civil War, and like someone could, like, I don't know, Tom Holland, Spider-Man could be like, oh, I know this, an Egyptian like professor or something like that, like I don't know, or Shang-Chi, like, I know
was
a
it
guy.
like? What was at the end of Moon Knight? Was like a taxi driver like picked him up, or he was a taxi driver.
Yeah,
right?
Lockley was like the taxi guy, and then you see, like, I can't
Is
remember
like
his name,
Tom
but the
Holland
god.
gonna get a taxi in New York, and then it's gonna be like that
Jake
character?
Lockley,
Dude, they could actually do that. That could work. I mean, New York, a lot of taxis around. Not that Spider-Man's a character that typically needs access to a taxi. He can swing around, but maybe he gets damaged and he needs to get back to his house or something like that. There you go. Writes itself.
The situations that kind of unfold, because I'm trying to remember with Infinity War, like Spider-Man was just on a school field trip when the alien ship hit, and then like Hulk landed with Doctor Strange, and then I don't even remember how Iron Man came. It's been a while since I've seen Infinity War, but Iron Man just appeared there as well. So like people could be nearby.
He just lives there, so he's walking around in the park with.
He was. Yeah, that's exactly it. He was going there
Potts.
with Pepper Potts. Yeah, so you can have heroes just nearby, and yeah, Jake Lockley could be
That's
driving
a good
a cab.
point. Like, yeah, New York, a happening place. Now, are they going to dip back into the New York well again? Right, Avengers, Infinity War. They've done it a lot at this point, so I don't know if they want to have that as the setting, the backdrop. But maybe they do because it's easier for budgets and stuff, and that's the thing with Marvel. So if that's the case, yeah, maybe he's just in New York or something like that. Wherever they set the story, it could just be one of his alternate personalities wants to live there, and therefore he moves there. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Aside from that, though, I think that's everything I kind of got on the lineup that's being rumored. Anything else you want to sneak in there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other part with this is that it seems like maybe Spider-Man is not necessarily a leader, but like a really big part of it, or potentially even a leader. I don't know if I see him as being like the one to call the shots, that kind of leader. But who knows? I mean, I feel like he's had a lot of chance to mature, and I think definitely his new life, and if there's going to be another movie or something beforehand, that could really change. That could be a very different version of Peter Parker than we know right now. So that could be a thing.
That'll be interesting. Like, if he is coming back, like, we got to see like a really souped up Spider-Man. He had the nanotech. He was just the bees and knees. So if you face him off against like Kang and all these other crazy interdimensional multiversal powerhouses, he's just going to be going at it again with his like skin tights that he knitted together there. Like, it's just, I'd love to see it. But like he's needed that suit, like even to face like Doc Ock and other characters too, especially Thanos. He needed that high tech suit.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at his team, like we kind of got a mix. Like Captain America, not incredibly strong, right? Like he's probably the weakest one on the roster. Maybe him or Moon Knight. Like, you know, Spider-Man would still kind of be above them in terms of power level, obviously. Even like I'd probably put Spidey above She-Hulk ever so slightly. Shuri, they might be kind of on a similar tier to each other. That's kind of hard to say. She's got the tech, plus she's got the suit now, right? So that's a different Shuri.
And she got the flower, so she's like same powers, kind of.
Yeah, so I think he holds up there. I just think like Captain Marvel obviously still a god, and Shang-Chi seems to be very powerful as well. And then Ant-Man is shown off to be pretty strong at this point too. So I think he'll be able to keep up. But yeah, I mean, keep up against a million Kangs? That's a different question.
Yeah. Shang-Chi doesn't have any like internal superpowers. It's really just the rings, isn't it?
I think it's the rings, yeah.
The rings, yeah.
And that he's jacked, but that's not a superpower. That's just hitting the gym.
Yeah, I would definitely. Unfortunately, yeah, I guess I would put like Captain America and Ant-Man are both, I would say, probably like same level. But then Ant-Man he's a
Giant
higher
Man.
level though, because he's got the tech.
Yeah.
Giant Man, like that tech not outdates. It beats Captain America's like wingsuit and shield, I'd say. So
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, we also saw him in the airport scene. He kind of got he can get toppled. You know, he's not undefeated. He's not indestructible. He's just but he's also gotten stronger since then too. Maybe not the tech wise, but in terms of visibility and whatnot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Spider-Man leading the charge, that would be interesting. At the end of the day, I could see like Captain America and Spider-Man, they just not necessarily fighting, but just like either or becoming that leader, especially Captain America, because he's like I fought with Captain America, Steve.
Yeah, I feel like Spidey doesn't seem the one that want to rise to the occasion and be the leader either. I feel like he would be happy to let Captain America take the reins on it.
Yeah. Leading into our next kind of topic with that, it's yesterday actually it was reported that Holland signed a deal for more Spider-Man films and Avengers films, which he's rumored to be the lead actually of at least for Kang Dynasty. So there you go. That's what we're just talking about. How do you feel about all this?
Yeah, I guess he can be the lead of the film without being the leader of the team of Avengers, right? So I guess that could be the difference maker there, where the movie is framed almost from his perspective. Maybe it starts off with him experiencing this stuff, and we get introduced to the other characters a bit later on into the film, so that could be the thing. He's definitely capable of it. And in terms of the star power, I think he's got that too, whereas I look at the rest of these actors, like I don't know, like who else would be necessarily like that leader, who gets the biggest face on the poster, I guess. And I think it would make sense for Spider-Man / Tom Holland to be in that role. I just don't see him necessarily rising to the occasion of being the leader of the team, but those once again are two different concepts. So yeah, I guess that's interesting, but also getting more movies, that makes sense. It seems like that was going to be the case, but it's just weird with the rights. We just don't always know these things. But it seems like when that is agreed to between Sony and MCU Marvel, and they come to a conclusion, it seems like that does get kind of fast tracked, and Spider-Man gets put top of the pile, and those movies maybe have a quicker production cycle. And I'm sure they've already done a ton of thinking from the Marvel side of things in terms of what they want that movie to be. And of course, if it's leading into this Avengers thing, you got to get that figured out, because you want to have whatever the events Spider-Man 4 are to lead into the events of Kang Dynasty, especially if he is going to be the lead of the film. So I'm very excited about it. I love where we finished off at the end of No Way Home, and it opens up so many possibilities, and especially if that movie too, with the open possibilities it has, but is going to be leading to a spot of Kang Dynasty, I cannot wait to see that. I can't wait to see who they pick for director, because I doubt not Sam Raimi. Who is the who is the director of No Way Home again?
Let me pull it up. We are looking at
Was it
John Watts.
John Watt, because he's done the whole trilogy now, right?
Uh,
Fact check my numbers here.
yeah. Yes, it looks like it.
But I think from what we've heard is like he would not be doing the fourth film. Maybe they'd be handing
He
it
wouldn't
off to
be.
someone
Yeah,
else, right?
that's what I had heard too.
So it'd be a
yeah.
different vibe in and of itself. There's a good chance we don't get any of that same cast, right? And obviously Tom Holland, but the rest of it, Aunt May, sorry, you're not there anymore. And then even the friends, like, they could just go down the route where he does not build those relationships with them again. That's kind of what makes the end of the movie so powerful, right? So, yeah, I think that'd be a very interesting kind of fresh start for the Spider-Man movies, but it also would have a lot on its shoulders if it's leading into Kang Dynasty. But yeah, how do you take this news?
I think that having more Spider-Man films is fantastic. I couldn't agree more with this. Like, and having him appear in multiple Avengers films too, that's great. Like, I really do like Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think he's fantastic. So let's get more Spider-Man villains. Let's get that movie and it shows like what's going on with Venom now being in our universe. Like, I really want to just
I don't know if they're going there. But
well, they got it though. I mean, the symbiote in that end credit scenes in Earth 616 now, so we got to get something with that. I hope.
you're not wrong. That could. I do not feel like that was one that was done to necessarily say that that's what the villain of the next movie is going to be. I feel like it could
That's
have been.
fair.
It very much could exist in Easter egg territory. I think. At
It
least,
definitely won't be Vulture. I know that much.
yeah. I mean, it could, like, even Venom could be a later thing too. But maybe there's some other storyline that's more pertinent in terms of setting up specifically Kang Dynasty.
I think Travis mentioned this. Travis or someone else, but like the idea of like, hey, Peter promised to go and talk to Ned and say, Ned, like, this is what happened, like, remind him and everything like that. But what if, he doesn't do that. So what if Ned actually finds out, gets super pissed, becomes Hobgoblin or something like that? I think I've seen this kind of like theory spun around out there, because I feel like that could be a possible route with Hobgoblin at least.
You'd really have to convince me on that storyline, I think. You'd really have
That's
to
fair.
convince me. I mean, just the setup of him not knowing anything about any of this, like, why would he be pissed about any of it? It's
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
yeah, it just doesn't really make sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the what could have been, I mean, there was that moment where he was doing some, like, Doctor Strange power, that he's doing some wizard stuff, but I don't need, that got erased too from his memory, I would assume, right?
It'd have to be like him getting somehow the memory back, like put into his mind, and just like, oh well, Peter, you never came and told me. You just let me just be a normal.
Yeah, which I just don't see them going down that route.
That's fair.
But once again, I mean, if it is a case where they get a new director in there and a new writer, and they're like, you know what, I want to play with these characters some more, then like they could do it. It's always possible with how these Marvel movies are made.
Yeah. Regarding like just being the lead for Kang Dynasty, yeah, I think that would be super, super cool. Not necessarily being the leader. In the chat, Chaos 13212. Not sure if you mentioned already, but didn't Kevin Feige already say that Captain Marvel is the new leader now? And I did a quick Google on comicbook.com. And I found a nice thing here about Kevin Feige. Let's see here. I had it here. Well, there isn't an official leader of the Avengers. It's in the title, but I don't want to just quote the title because headlines, as I've learned lately, cannot be trustworthy. But in the title, it says Kevin Feige says Captain America will lead the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So he says it like that.
Captain America or Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel, sorry.
Okay.
Will lead the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right,
So I guess
which
it
is
doesn't
different
really
from leading the Avengers.
Yeah. So
I guess,
Interesting.
to go into it, because I do not remember that. That did not sound familiar to me when I read Chaos in the chat there. But I guess if we look at it, Infinity War, I'm trying to remember where exactly Captain Marvel was during some of these things. Because Captain Marvel was still survived the snap, right? So Captain Marvel is the only person, if we look at that roster, that was alive that whole time, right? Everyone else was gone. So that could be a thing too, where it's almost like, how Wong like took over as Sorcerer Supreme because Strange was gone. That could be a thing too, where it's like, Yeah, Captain Marvel was around for all these years as an Avenger, and even if she wasn't on Earth, like it would almost make sense if she's almost grandfathered into that position in a way. That's an interesting thought. I mean, maybe Moon Knight wasn't snapped, but he wasn't obviously an Avenger at that time. I mean, none of these characters were Avengers, so it's... Yeah, I guess we don't know the snap level of them, but she's really, I guess what I'm getting at is she was the only one who has been on the Avengers for this time and was not snapped either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I guess Hulk too, but I mean, if he's not in this, I'm just looking at the roster that we have here because Hulk and Thor, of course, were around, but they're not part of this rumored roster.
Yeah. I can't remember if Shuri was snapped. I'm pretty sure her and Black Panther were both snapped.
Yeah, but she wasn't an Avenger yet anyway, right?
She wasn't, yeah. Like, yeah, none of these folks were really Avengers throughout that time period.
Except for Spider-Man-ish,
Spider-Man.
But then he was, snapped away. And Ant-Man was in the quantum realm that whole time.
And I guess,
he was never really an Avenger. He was more just like a merc on the one airport job. And then it kind of eventually became sort of part of the team.
Yeah, and Shang-Chi we don't really know, and then Moon Knight I don't even think we really know there. I can't remember fully what.
Yeah, it's kind of.
That's a good, interesting point though. I like that. So experience definitely outranks everything there. So Captain Marvel fits the bill for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a galactic level thing too, then she's really the only one that makes sense to be the leader in that sense, right?
Yeah, and she was at the end of Endgame, at least. Like she was at the funeral, and then she was gone. And I guess we'll see what she's been up to in the Marvels because she just like teleports into Miss Marvel's bedroom, and that's pretty much it. Fanboy Clay, wasn't it rumored for Sam to be recruiting for the Avengers in the new Captain America movie?
Yeah, I think we've heard that. That sounds like that's where She-Hulk would pop up into the greater storyline, right? He would maybe bump into her. Of course, leader is villain, so that the Hulk connection kind of makes sense there. So I think we've heard that for at least She-Hulk. I'm trying to go through my mind and remember all the rumors we've talked about in terms of other characters that would be involved in that sort of scheme. But once again, even if he's recruiting people, it doesn't necessarily mean he's the leader of the team.
That's
also, we
true.
could just be in a point where there is no leader, right? We could be talking about all this, but there could just be not really like one set person. That could be a thing too.
No Daredevil on this Avengers list either.
Yeah. I don't know.
Too busy with this TV show.
Maybe he's just too weak. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough.
But I mean, if he wants I'm sure She-Hulk would, throw him a text. Hey, do you want to join this team?
Oh, yeah. Like, they're pretty much like in a committed relationship. I mean, going to
I wish.
picnics.
I don't think so, though, Taylor. I don't
No,
think so.
the family picnic? I think that's pretty, that's relationship.
From all the other rumors we've heard, it sounds like Daredevil has a new fling in his show. So I feel like that was maybe just a weekend ride for the both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, do you have anything else you want to throw in there before we
No, we can move on to the next one.
move on? Okay, we're going to jump to our first ad break, and then we will be right back. And we are back. So, our next topic of the night, Fantastic Four related. Supposedly, to this rumor, they are to be parents in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I did not really ever piece together the concept of like Reed Richards and Sue Storm ever, like, I know they got together based on the previous movies, but I didn't really ever think that they became parents, had kids, or anything like that. How do you feel about this?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. I immediately thought of Spider-Man and how they've tackled Spider-Man in the MCU and how they specifically took a very different approach with the character, different from the other origin stories that we have seen in just live action before. And you could even say beyond live action, in like animated shows and stuff, like very different kind of origins. And I mean, not even just different, but just we're not hearing about Uncle Ben and things like that. So I mentioned that to say with Fantastic Four, I've talked about this a lot, where Feige has confirmed, I believe, that this movie is not going to be an origin story, the Fantastic Four movie. So it's like, okay, well, what kind of path do we want to take with these characters? Are we just going to skip into them present day? And to me, this is almost like, okay, just beyond an origin, here's another way they could go to differentiate this version of the Fantastic Four from what we've had previously in the two previous live action versions. So I think to that extent, it makes sense. It seems like an all right decision. I guess for me, I'm totally okay with it, but I kind of would have preferred if we had one movie without it. And then the second movie, the sequel, is when parenthood exists. And that could be weird for time, right? Is like, okay, do we want the second movie for them to be parents to like newborn babies? Then, maybe that's not super exciting, but then how in the timeline do you get away, other than like superpowers where it's like these kids, grew to the age 18 in 4 days or something weird like that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of just my overall take is, okay, maybe it's slightly too soon, but I'm also not opposed to the idea. I'm actually totally okay with it and excited to see what happens there. And once again, it also a little bit makes sense we have the director here, Matt Shackman, I think is his name, right? Who did WandaVision, and we've seen that kind of family dynamic there. So I think it's kind of cool that he's maybe the expert in the MCU when they want a writer director kind of working on this project. He seems like a good fit for that kind of thing. So I have some other thoughts on this in terms of the kids themselves, but those are my just kind of top level thoughts on the general idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that using like this kind of like notion here, I guess it kind of like leads into like Sue Storm and kind of like this.
I have sorry, very random tangent. I have like an internal bingo chart in my head that you'll just always use the word notion at some point. It's kind of like Travis and Penultimate now. I'm just always looking out for the Taylor notion. Cryptic Clues, GeekVerse, you always drop that notion in there. I love it.
It has a plethora of uses. I love that word so much.
Oh, God. Anyway, go ahead. Fantastic Four, parents.
Yeah, so using Sue Storm kind of being the getting into our next piggyback topic there, just kind of having the story built around her, but using the kids to kind of help shape that story and just kind of using her to kind of like connect us with the kids. Like again, the kids I'm assuming would be like a Young Avengers kind of thing, maybe. Like if we are getting a story where she's already established, the Fantastic Four is already set up, and kind of like an Eternals equivalent, like, hey, they've been around for a while already. They already got their powers. They're kicking around. And the kids are already grown up. We just haven't seen them yet. That could be something that they do, because we've only had, I guess, 2 origin tackles of the Fantastic Four. And I'm not saying like it's a overdone thing, but like I definitely don't mind having the characters already existing as opposed to getting the origin story. And I defer to Black Panther, for example, and Captain America Civil War. Having Black Panther just show up, and we didn't really need that origin story. I like that. I thought it was great. Having Spider-Man just show up, I thought that was great as well. Like it totally jived. So I'm totally down for that with the Fantastic Four. It is cautionary because it's 4 of them, and now if the kids are involved in this too, that's definitely tricky. I guess 5 actually, because you have Doom. But if you have a Fantastic
Four,
it's
like 5-6 less than Eternals, so they got less there.
That's true. Like I don't feel like
if that's a great point to look at in terms of how successful it was to introduce 100 characters in one movie.
I don't think that they would necessarily do the origin story, simply because if you do the Fantastic Four, you got to bring Doom into that, because I mean, unless you totally change it up, because the MCU can, but I've always just thought, okay, Doom's origin is so closely affiliated with the Fantastic Four, and I don't feel like they're going to introduce Doom with the Fantastic Four. They're going to do it very differently, which again, I guess I'm just like proving my own point here, that it's actually, or defeating my own point. They could introduce the Fantastic Four and not have any mention of Doom whatsoever, and just cover that later on somewhere else.
It could be a name drop, right? We could be past that, and they could mention just Victor. They could mention him as Doom, and that be a thing that we either see in flashbacks, I guess, or like they're future-proofing it, and it's a character who he's Victor Von Doom, but he hasn't gone like full bad guy yet, so he hasn't risen to that villain status yet. And by the second movie, and maybe after the Avengers movies, is when he really like rises to power in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious, because one of the things I saw when I was just looking up, because I didn't know anything about their kids, Franklin and Valeria, I guess is how you pronounce it. It's not Valerie. Valeria, I'm going to say, which I think part of that too is that, so apparently in the comics, Doctor Doom like helped Sue Storm like give birth. Like she was like going to die essentially during childbirth, and he helped save her life through, of course, like a combination of science and magic and all this stuff. And because of that, is like, I think that's partially like he picked that name, Valeria. Of course, they don't have to go with these. They could have other kids. They don't have to follow this. But I don't know if also, I don't know if Valeria is supposed to be like kind of like Latveria. It's supposed to be like a almost like a Voldemorting of the letters of situation going on there, and the way it kind of just rolls off the tongue the same way. But like, if that is the case, and that is a big part of the origin story of specifically their kids and her like giving birth and that experience for her, then I wonder if they just completely skip over that, because they could. It could just be, oh, here's the kids. You don't think about like how they were born. For most people, who don't care about that kind of thing. But they could also dig into that once again, whether it's like a shout out, a mention, or it's something that I don't know if they would do a flashback to a childbirth scene or something like that. But that it could, it could be a mention, or it could be something we see. But once again, that's almost like that's the origin story stuff for these other characters, but that's not necessarily like the origin story that we're used to. So that could be what Kevin Feige means also, of like, oh, it's not the origin story, but they're going to have an origin. It's going to start somewhere, and we're still going to get the start of these characters. It's just not necessarily what we've seen before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That name comparison, Latveria and Valeria, that's very, very intriguing. I like that. Also very interesting because you got like Franklin and then Valeria. Like there's total differences in names.
Yeah, you
there.
can tell who named who. Like, yeah, the
Yeah.
freaky guy gave her this strange name, and they picked Franklin.
I had to take a moment to think back because when we had Krasinski, who again at this point not been contacted to come back at all, like looks like we'll talk more about the casting, but not contacted to come back at all as Reed Richards. But in Multiverse of Madness, you have Reed Richards state like, yeah, I have kids, like the family and everything like that. So there's our first kind of tidbit of, hey, yeah, the kids exist in one of these dimension, like universes, multiverses.
Yeah.
So another gateway possibly to adding a little bit more credit to this. Maybe we'll get the kids for sure. So who knows?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was looking into who these kids are, as I mentioned the names, but their superhero names. Franklin's name was Powerhouse, which my name is alluding to, and then Brainstorm is Brainstorm. I just realized that Sue Storm, Brainstorm. There's kind of a connection there, but yeah, I mean, this also makes a lot of sense for me because we know this movie is very like specifically coming out before Kang Dynasty. And looking into like some of their powers and some of the origin stories, there seems to be a lot of connections there because apparently Franklin Richards very, very powerful, and in some comic book runs, his like very godlike powers have been used to restore the multiverse following its collapse because of like the incursion crisis and stuff like this. And then Valeria also is like created some sort of safe haven like outside of the multiverse so that people could survive the attack of Kang. Essentially, I don't know if it was Kang in that, or if it was some other multiverse destroying character in that. But just reading into that like surface level that I did, very interesting that those characters have like a very big connection to specifically the multiverse crisis and stuff like that. And it seems like, okay, well, maybe the timing's perfect then to introduce those characters, have them existing in the world, because then they're very, very relevant for the Avengers movie that's going to come out probably just months after the movie. So the more I look into it, the more it kind of makes sense. And I'm like, okay, I do see why they would do this here. And yes, it might seem like a lot in one movie, but at the same time, I also do feel like these characters are well established enough that you don't really need to go too deep into them. Like, how much backstory do people need on the thing? Like, I feel like you can just really drop them in there and you're good to go. And you'll pick up the rest of this context just from like watching the Fantastic Four movie without having to explain like how they got their powers and stuff and whether or not they allude to that stuff or not. Like, we can just have them fighting the Silver Surfer in this movie and somehow setting them, like, leading into Kang Dynasty, and boom, you, like, got all this setup out of the way. So, yeah, the more I look into it, the more it seems like, okay, this rumor, if it is true, seems very plausible.
As in the chat, Franklin is like an Omega level mutant. There you go.
Damn. There you go.
Yeah, casting is supposed to be happening soon, or the Sue Storm will be the first to be cast, and the rest will be kind of built around her, as we already alluded to.
Yeah,
I think that they were looking for like a 30, 35-year-old-ish to play Sue Storm. So,
yeah, what do you think about them kind of framing it as she's going to be specifically the first, and they want to build the cast around her? Why do you think that is?
Oh, my goodness gracious. It could be like you can kind of get same director, and maybe the director is going after something that he knows he can excel at. He knows that he was
Okay.
able to focus on Wanda, even though the show's called
Yeah, good
WandaVision.
point.
But he can focus on Wanda mostly, the kids and that dynamic. So maybe, okay, we're gonna take that.
They're
and-
like, give this guy a Wanda, and he'll make her
Yeah,
shine. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what he's doing. He's just maybe capitalizing on what he is very capable at.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this too. I that's a great thought, Taylor. I'm glad you brought that up. But also, it made me wonder, like, is she going to be the lead of this movie? Like, do they want it to kind of be focused around her? Which I think would be really cool, because the original one, like, she's obviously a big part of it, but I think Mr. Fantastic is still, like, without a doubt, kind of the lead in that story, right? And she's almost more of an accessory at times than she kind of becomes in that bigger status. And I don't even remember what happens in the second one. And I can't really remember what happens in the most recent Fantastic Four in terms of who the lead is, but I feel like, once again, it's kind of focused on Reed. So it would be interesting if we get her and she's kind of, it's more focused on her being the centerpiece of the story, and maybe like about the motherhood aspect of it. That would be interesting if that was more the core, the focus. When you boil it all down, that's what the story is. These other characters are adding on to it. But it also made me wonder, like, do they really want her cast first because they want to include her in some other MCU project before the Fantastic Four movie, and therefore it would mean that they have the highest priority to get her cast as quick as possible, so that they can, maybe, who knows, maybe it's something they're planning to film later this year, and so, like, we need that cast immediately because she's going to be coming up soon here. So that could be an element of it as well.
That's fair, because that's kind of like, I think that's kind of what happened with Jonathan Majors, where they had to get the casting done pretty quick because you have Loki, way before, like, Loki season 1, way before Quantumania.
Yeah,
so
good point. Yeah.
that could very well be the case, and they have other projects lined up for this actress to play Sue Storm in. So yeah. Anything else you want to sneak in there?
I think I'm good on that. I'm very excited to finally get this, because I think this rumor casting is going on for so long now, and I am now kind of at the belief point that John Krasinski, even outside of this article, it's like, yeah, I think that was a one-time thing they wanted to do to please the fans. It doesn't seem like he's sticking around. I'm bummed about that in a sense, because I really like him, and I was part of the team fan cast for that. But I also am excited to see just who else they pick, because obviously maybe the casting for him just doesn't quite fit for what they were trying to do here. So I am very excited to see who we get, and it might be like Comic-Con time is when we actually get these people. But who knows? Even like the rumor mill will be going, like, circling like crazy, like vultures, in the parking lot, just in the next month when they're kicking off the casting of this thing. We'll get short lists. We might not have the official names, but we'll get, like, it's between these 5 people and stuff like that. And those will be some fun rumors to break down and look at the teams.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I definitely love John Krasinski, and I think he was a fantastic Reed Richards. But I get
he's
it.
One of your very top favorite MCU characters of all time. Go check out our our Patreon exclusive episode.
Absolutely.
Very good time. Yeah.
Makes sense, though. I mean, he's probably busy with several Quiet Place spin-off anthology films he's doing now, or
he's a
something
busy
like
man.
that. So
He's a busy man.
guy. Yeah.
But it seems like if they didn't even call him, I don't know if they care if he's busy. They just like, just like Ant-Man's daughter in Endgame. Sometimes they do that. Sometimes they get tired of people, and they're like, yeah, let's get someone new.
Yeah, you don't find out until you're watching like a Disney Expo or something like that. Like, investors call.
Someone,
like,
one of your friends texts you. It's like, oh, I guess I'm fired. Well, that's interesting.
All right, well, we're gonna jump to our next topic here. Bunch of MCU updates. So we have, first off, Kang to be in 3 episodes of Loki. This is a C+ tier rumor. So start us off here, Dylan. What do you think of this?
Yeah, it's okay. So Loki season 1 was 6 episodes, right?
Yes.
Pretty much every show has been except for She-Hulk at this point. That's correct, right? Is Loki a 6-episode thing as well?
Loki should be. I'll just double check here.
Yeah. So if you put it like, because immediately when I heard this, I'm like, oh, that's not a lot. But I think I was thinking of the She-Hulk framework, where it's like, oh yeah, that would be like a third of the episodes. But if it is 6 episodes, then that's half the season. Like, that's quite a bit of the thing. We got 6 on the banner, so it's confirmed. So yeah, there you go. Okay, if that is the case, that's half the season. which seems good, but it also raises the question of, okay, well, obviously he's not the one and only, rather than villain, I'll say antagonist in this thing. So the question is, who else do we got? I think we got Hei Kwang is he's cast to be in the show. I forget what his role is. I don't know if he's supposed to be a villain, the guy from Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't know if he is a villain or if he's another just character popping up in this world. Can't remember what if we know the role that he's in yet. But yeah, I'm curious if this is directly following what happens in Quantumania, and we get to figure out what's going on with that Kang immediately, and that's the first 3 episode run, like string of things, or if it's him in the last 3 episodes, and sounds like, okay, we're going up against him as the villain of this thing now. Of course, they could also do a thing where he's around for the whole season, but he appears in like episode 1, 4, 6, that kind of thing, and he's more sprinkled throughout it. But I guess I think it would make more sense if he was in a string of 3 episodes, whether it's the first or second half of the season. And I almost kind of want that too, I guess. But yeah, that leaves a lot of opportunity for there to be other villains, other storylines going on here. So it's exciting, but also, once again, it's exciting, but it brings up just as many questions as it does answers.
Yeah. As posted in the chat, I think he's supposed to be a TVA agent.
Right. That could mean like anything at this point, just in terms of where the TVA is at after season 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting,
though. Kang being in only 3 episodes, it's tricky for me because like I almost feel like he'd have to be in like all of them, but like you can't say that. And I'm just saying that based on like how that first season ended, where you just look up at the statue and it's Kang everywhere. It's like, holy smokes, okay, like there's such a heavy focus here of Kang. We know Quantumania has a million Kangs all over the place, left, right, and center. So to limit Kang being only 3, it makes me wonder what, like, if we are following Quantumania, are we just going to deal with just that one Kang in that like 1800s setting, or like early 1900s setting? It'll be interesting. Or are we going to, are we not going to get like a modern day Kang, a Kang member of that like fancy council that we saw in Quantumania? So yeah, I don't know.
I think we'll just get that one Kang.
Just the one Kang?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense then. Not to like oversaturate it, I guess, because like I'm sure a lot of people saw all those Kangs and got super, super like kerfuffled or something like that. And but that being said, like it's no flack against Jonathan Majors, like talking about like oversaturating with too many Kangs. Like he makes every Kang feel like it's a different Kang, which is great, and I love that. So yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Next one, unless you have anything else to add.
No, let's go ahead.
Marvel's delayed to November. How do you feel?
Do we want to roll all the delay stuff into one topic here, maybe?
That's a good idea, yeah. Ironheart and Echo, rumored to be delayed as Feige and Marvel look to slow down production all around.
Yeah, so this makes sense. It makes so much sense. Think about, like, taking out Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special and Werewolf by Night. Like, every other project that we've talked about and reviewed for months at this point, if not years, there's some beef with CGI and special effects and stuff like that, right? I don't know if I feel like Black Panther actually scathed by pretty well. There's maybe some weird points with some underwater stuff that didn't look great, but like, yeah, She-Hulk obviously had a lot of issues. Miss Marvel had a ton of issues. Thor: Love and Thunder had some weird stuff. Multiverse of Madness had some moments as well. Moon Knight, famously the fucking log truck scene. So obviously all these things, it's not, if you look in the credits of these movies in these TV shows, it's not for a lack of people. They have like hundreds of people worked on the special effects for these things. It's definitely just a management issue and a lack of time to get these things properly polished and ready to go. And they're just trying to keep this machine going. But yeah, the machine eventually, like, you need to slow it down, maybe get some repairs, update it a little bit like that. So I think all this stuff makes sense. Slow down a little bit. Let's get that CGI fixed and all that whatnot. So yeah, I all this kind of makes sense to me. The Marvel's delay is not a huge deal from summer to November. Kind of makes sense if we're not going to have much going on in the MCU in fall. I think even from that perspective, even if the movie was ready and they just want something else big in the fall because other things are getting delayed out of the year, I think that totally makes sense. And we're already going to have enough going on in the late spring, summer season for the MCU. So that one might not even be a delay because of issues with the movie. It might just be that they want something big in the fall in that November slot. And then Ironheart and Echo, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate as fans, but also at the same time, it's good because we're probably going to get a better product for it, hopefully. Now, if they delay these things and they still have these same CGI issues, then that sucks. I don't even know what was the point at that point. But yeah, I don't know. It's not looking too good. But at the same time, we're already going to have Secret Invasion. We're going to have Loki, and then it sounds like good chance of maybe a X-Men, perhaps even a What If in terms of shows this year. So I don't think it's a huge deal either. It sounds like we're still going to have a lot of MCU content for the year. 3 movies, 3 to 4 shows, not too bad. But I know you have some skin in the game because in our draft you have some characters from these projects, at least from Ironheart. I don't know if you have any Echo people on your... I don't think you do. I think you're really just more on the Ironheart side of things, right?
Yeah, Kirklin was the Echo. I was the Ironheart. I was actually really banking a lot on Ironheart for my draft, so this one's a bit of a blow. But
we're all going to lose anyway. Kirklin won, so
Kirklin
it's okay.
won. Yeah, so I think delaying these a little bit, though, is totally fine. Like, to spend a little bit more time and let your effects team and production people kind of actually get some sleep at night is great. Just kind of like pump the brakes a little bit, just kind of tone it down. Fantastic music to my ears. I do think it's interesting how like this happens now when Bob Iger comes back, and I think it's exactly like SBub says in the chat here. Like, seems like Iger came in, wanted to give Feige more time. It's just, I'm pretty sure Bob Iger left in 2021-ish. He was guiding Chapek a little bit, but at that point in time, like, WandaVision was like a success, 2020-ish. I just feel like when Iger left, then you have this kind of like, you start to notice something going on with the MCU distinctively, I'd say.
Right.
And now here we are. He's back in the game, and he's going to kind of get things back on track. And I often wonder how much control Feige really has, like, in terms of a final say when it comes to some of these Marvel projects and what they want to do and like the deadlines and the timelines, because with Iger back, it just feels like he's probably like best friends with Feige, and like, because I'm pretty sure I was reading some articles how he's really like pushing for Feige to stay in here, and I think like Feige was, I don't know if his position, I could be totally just spitfiring this out without like any credibility. I'm just trying to remember what I had read or what I thought I'd read, that Feige's job or position wasn't like the most like securest, based with like Disney with the MCU, but like Iger was like holding him there and keeping like firm, like and giving Feige like the reins, like, just keep going, and like they managed to get to where they are now. Is that like a good duo? So I think in retrospect, having Iger back and working on this is great. And the result of the delays is totally fine. Yeah, if it means quality, then that's exactly what we're here for. And a little bit of a shakeup too, like when you have something like Quantumania where it's all CGI and there's like one use of a practical set at the beginning and the end of the movie, and that's it. You got to make sure it's refined. Got to make sure it looks good, because you don't want any more log truck scenes.
Definitely. And it could be a thing too where it's there's been so much movement recently in terms of release dates or directors and things like that in the MCU. Obviously, there's so many projects going on that naturally these things are going to happen. Some of these delays too could strictly be that, like, okay, these things just are getting moved down a bit in the priority, and maybe there's some other project that they really want. It could just be, go back to the Spider-Man thing. Maybe the Spider-Man thing is further along than we are expecting, and they want a quick turnaround for this thing, and they're planning to like shoot that thing later this year, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to need the special effects teams that we have. Maybe the ones that we're working on Echo, we want to take that team and we're going to like, take them over here, throw them on Spider-Man right away. So it's impossible to say why all these things happen. It could be as simple as like, okay, we wanted to give more time to our special effects team, but it could be any number of other things too in terms of the greater machine that is the MCU.
Yeah. Totally. To close off our MCU news here, we have a little bit of content on Captain America 4, Thunderbolt Ross. Again, we know he's going to be played by Harrison Ford. He is supposedly going to be the president in Captain America 4. It's quite an upgrade.
Taylor, you got to start on this one. I don't know if I have much.
Well, I mean, the last time we see Ross is Black Widow, like a young, I guess, prequel sense, like a young Ross and Black Widow, and then last time we see him after that in the future would have been Endgame at Tony Stark's funeral. So I'm curious to see. Well, obviously he's been busy, but I'm curious to see what they really do with him being the president, because I don't feel like he's very trustworthy. He's very much got his own kind of MO. He's got the whatever that underwater prison is. His Sokovia Accords didn't pan out very well, so he's pushing now for the Thunderbolts, of course, the Thunderbolts. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he's all about and what he's doing, why he wanted to push to become president. That's such a political figure in like the MCU that I don't know how that's really going to benefit him. Like the only other time we saw the president was in Iron Man 3 when he was taken hostage, and he was quite vulnerable in there. So yeah, I'm curious, like what is his goal? Is this him kind of becoming more of like a sinister thing? I'm assuming Red Hulk is more of like a villain, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna have to honestly like watch a YouTube video of like here's every Thunderbolt Ross scene in the MCU. It's like I cannot remember the trajectory of this guy, and even like I feel like we've had a couple presidents in the MCU previously in random projects, but like I could not give you the breakdown of like here was holding office for these movies. Like that's the kind of detail of MCU that like goes right over my head. So I'm gonna obviously do my research before this movie comes out, especially if that is the case, and I'm sure the trailers will allude to that too. That the president who's turned into the Hulk, like that's like you want to sell that, especially if it's Harrison Ford who's playing that character. But yeah, as for right now, like that does not really increase or decrease my excitement of the project at all. It's just like pure neutral on it, but it could be pretty big for the greater MCU, so we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Could be like a thing related to the snap too, right? Like maybe the president got snapped and like Thunderbolt Ross like snuck in the back door kind of thing. I don't know. We'll find out.
So president comes back and he's like, "Sorry, you're not the president anymore. We got a new president."
Yeah,
that'd be so bad.
Repopulates in the White House and he's like in the same seat. Yeah, something weird like that.
In the chat, MJ, I hope we get less joking, more mature, and bit brute Spider-Man.
That's the real MJ.
Trilogy. The real MJ. I mean, they're specifically referring to Spider-Man. So I mean,
oh my God, is that you, Mary Jane?
The real Mary Jane Watson. And S-Bubs as well. Yeah, the only real time the president shows up is Iron Man 3. I don't think he's been mentioned anywhere else. Yeah, really just not a... What benefit does a president have really in a world full of superheroes, I guess?
He's pretty much powerless. To that Spider-Man point, I do hope we see a bit more maturity for sure, and I think even just taking away some of the friendship dynamic, I feel like that could naturally make it a bit more mature. Yeah, but before we left off at the end of that movie, man, this is a different Spider-Man. He's changed. Things are a lot darker for him now. So I think it will be more mature, but I don't know if it would be significantly more mature just because I've seen how the MCU operates and they love their quips. So
they do. They
like
really
a Quantumania. I thought that was going to be serious. Nope. It's a Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to sneak in there for Thunderbolts or delays or all that?
No, that was a good MCU rumor dump. That was fun. I like that.
Rumor dump. Okay. We're going to jump to our next ad break here, and we'll get into our final topic of the night, the trailer. So we'll be right back. And we are back. So, Dylan, which trailer do you want to start off with? What are you feeling?
You know what? Let's go John Wick. Chapter 4.
Wick. Okay. Lead us in. How do you feel?
So, when I watched a trailer for this, it said final trailer. Which makes me think that there's been several other trailers, and I don't think I've seen any of those. So I don't know the full scope of this thing, but I think what stood out to me was like, wow, they are really going all out with the cast of this thing. There's a lot of people in this movie, and I think like an idiot, I closed the IMDb page, so I don't know if you have that up, but I know you got your favorite Donnie Yen in there, and yeah, it's just some other interesting names that like I'm curious to see what they're going on in there. But yeah, for me, what I was going in this trailer hoping for was we got that confirmation recently that this movie is going to be pretty much 3 hours long, and I wanted to see from this trailer, what is the story hook? How are you going to justify me sitting in the theater for 3 hours from a story perspective? Because I'm sure action-wise, they're probably going to have a bigger budget than ever. They can do more action and whatnot, but like, what's going to compel from the story side? And I did not get any of that. It is exactly like, okay, remember what happened to John Wick at the end of the last movie? and pretty much the plot of what the third movie is, and him being excommunicado. It seems like we're just doing more of that. He's still excommunicado, and he's still fighting these guys. So, it wasn't really that hype for me. And you don't need to show me any action scenes. Those action scenes are so good that you do not need a trailer to sell me on that. Like, they go above and beyond for so many memorable action set pieces and sequences, and the stunt team, all that is top notch in this thing. So I don't need that. That's not what I need to be sold on. I'm going to go see this anyway because of podcast purposes. But if it weren't for that, I don't know what would be getting me in the seat if I was a casual viewer. But at the same time, they've made 3 of these things already. The John Wick fans are John Wick fans. They're probably ride or dies at this point, and they're going to go no matter what. And most people are going to go for the action anyway, and that's why I'm going. But I would love if I could also be sold on the story. But it just doesn't seem like they are really too interested in making that part of the marketing cycle, which honestly is probably the correct thing to do, because I don't think that's why most people want this. That's just where I personally would be more interested in. So there's my take on it. But yeah, it looks great. It looks like more John Wick.
Yeah, with this trailer, I got super jazzed. Like it's sold me. I'm on board. I totally am. I think it's gonna be great. If you go and tune into our retros that are on Patreon, if you're a Patreon subscriber, because you'll find that I am very optimistic and positive towards this franchise. And I love the action. Yeah, Donnie Yen is in this. It's gonna be super cool. And it seems like why I took this, the general narrative is, you want to get your old life back, then you got to survive just everyone coming at you, kind of a thing. Like, we're going to send everyone at you, and if you survive it, then yeah, okay, fine, we'll bugger off, we'll leave you alone, which has been the kind of the theme for the past 3 movies.
Yep.
So one thing specifically, and this is something we talked about in the retros, it really cracks me up, is this scene here. Like, we foreshadowed and talked, like, he's gonna go back to the desert and kill the main boss guy, and like that's exactly what he's doing here. He's going to the man above the table, and he's gonna obviously bop him. But just to be implemented back in this world, I'm super excited. Oh man, and to be 2.5 hours, I can't even fathom everything we're gonna be getting, just action wise. And yeah, it's great. It's just, there's this level of class in this movie, and I really enjoy it when you just get in the suit and just the prim proper etiquette, I guess you could say. Yeah, I'm all aboard. So yeah,
nice. Yeah, that's just like 1 month away at this point. Hey, that's right around the corner.
Away. Yeah, it's right around the corner. All right, what do you want to do next?
Let's go to the land of video games, Taylor Field.
Beautiful. How far back do you and Tetris go?
I think I have the NES cartridge for Tetris.
Ooh.
So it was probably one of the very first games I played. That seems correct to me, but I don't know why. For whatever reason, everyone in this trailer is like, I played this game and I couldn't stop, and it was the best thing ever. I feel like that was not an experience I had with it as a kid. I guess more into Mario and stuff like that. But no, I mean, I do love Tetris now. I've spent a lot of time with it, but it's funny. Like, one of the first lines he has in this trailer is, he's like, I still see falling blocks in my dreams and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, that is totally me with Dr. Mario. I think that's where I'm at now with Tetris, where out of those 2 block falling puzzle games, like, Dr. Mario's more my jam. But I've had that when I'm on my Dr. Mario benders and I'm playing that game just like religiously for a month, when I'm sucked back in, like, I close my eyes and I see the pills dropping from the screen. So I totally relate with that feeling. But yeah, I don't know. This is a really good looking trailer. Very solid. It's rated R, which is kind of both shocking, but also like, there's so much of this story that I do not know, right? And I'm very curious to see what that story is. So it's definitely got me hooked in that sense. And yeah, beyond that, like, the music's great. They got the Tetris theme in there, but it's kind of a remixed version that is less video game arcadey and more fitting for what is going to be like a drama thriller sort of show that we got going on here. And then just some of the video game effects that they throw in there, I thought was very tasteful, that it's not just them like playing on nostalgia of Tetris. Like, they're very much making this a kind of biopic-y sort of drama thing, right? That's more the vibe of it than it is a video game movie. But they're throwing things in there, like even when they're doing that traffic, like driving through traffic, someone's after them and stuff like that, and you get a quick glimpse of what is essentially like that scene turned into a Tetris formation where he's like driving around as if the other cars are blocks and kind of driving through. So it seems like it's going to have like very tasteful connections to video games without it being strictly a video game movie in all of the baggage that carries along and all of the issues that's carried along in so much of just those adaptations. So obviously this is a very different type of adaptation too, where you're not taking a story one-to-one, you're telling the story of Tetris, but of course the game will be involved in it to some extent. So it's not like an emoji movie with Tetris, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, this trailer got me super, super excited, and I really wasn't. I wasn't expecting it to. Like, I saw, oh, they're doing a Tetris movie. Okay, it's cool. And this is an Apple streaming movie as well. So
sorry,
when
is it a movie or a series? That was actually the thing I missed.
I believe it was a movie, and it's
Okay.
dropping. It's dropping on Apple. So, yeah, like I wasn't expecting to be kind of really caught off guard and invested in this, but when I watched the trailer, I think it was like Taron Egerton's excitement and optimism. I love him as an actor. He's fantastic.
He looks great in this.
Really, really does. Like, he's selling it. Like, he's making me believe like Tetris is the greatest thing of all time. And like, especially when we got to the scene where like only like 3 or 4 people ever in the world have seen this. Like, it's the Game Boy. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty cool. Very, very unique.
Which funny timing on that, because just in the last Nintendo Direct 2 weeks ago, like they added the Game Boy to the Nintendo Switch Online, and Tetris is of course part of that collection. So it was funny timing too.
Coincidence? I don't know.
Yeah, there was something going on behind the scenes. But you didn't answer. What is your Tetris history or fandom? Do you love Tetris?
I quite enjoy
seen it in your
Tetris.
dreams?
I don't know if I'm seeing it in my dreams, but I've definitely invested a fair bit of time. I did the Tetris Battle Royale on the Switch for a little bit, and all the other different like classic Tetris stuff like that, Puyo Puyo Tetris, and all those. Like, there's a whole
Nice.
different variety of variants of it, and whenever it pops up, it's always like it's a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Like, I really, really do.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy it, but I'm these days I'm not actively seeking it out as much. But it's always a good time. My experience would be, I mean, since I was a little kid, probably, and I don't think I ever had it on Game Boy or anything like that. It would just be going onto some Flash website
Yeah.
on internet, just playing a couple of levels of Tetris. Yeah. But yeah, with the trailer, I love what you said, how those scenes kind of transition to like that pixelated sequence from Tetris or something like that
that's
when they're
cool.
like driving through traffic and everything. Very, very cool. So I'm very much looking forward to how they're going to tell this story and just them getting the rights to Tetris to bundle it with the Game Boy and all that. So yeah.
Apple's kind of been crushing it lately. I mean, I haven't seen much, to be fair, but I guess, what was it, Ted Lasso and what the hell, Severance? Yeah, those two, like pretty solid thing. So I've been enjoying what Apple's creating these days.
I had an Apple subscription when I got my previous iPhone. They gave you like a year subscription for free, and I watched a couple things, but like at the time, because this was like 3 years ago, at the time there really wasn't anything really kicking for me that I was really
It seems
indulging.
more
but
recent times that they've really been taken off for sure.
yeah, now there's a lot of stuff that I really do want to get in, and if I cancel the Netflix, put up the fight
Yeah.
to stick it to the man, I might indulge in some.
They're almost
Apple
canceling
TV.
it for you. They're just like
Yeah.
forcing you out almost.
Yeah. 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 Anything else you want to throw into Tetris?
No, that's yeah, looks what was the release date? Sorry, that's probably a good thing to
Good
bring
question. March 15th,
up.
2023. That's
Yeah,
just
that's right
around the corner.
That's what I really like about some of these streaming service things is you'll get an announcement for something and it's out within a month's time. That's really cool. So I'll definitely be watching this one. I think that is a busy week for me, so I don't know in terms of review status if we're reviewing that what's going to happen, but I definitely will see myself checking this one out, and I do have Apple TV here. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Hell yeah. All right. So our next and I believe last topic of the night is a Love and Death trailer. So this one has one and only Jesse Plemons and the one and only Elizabeth Olsen. I did not know that this was a movie until I saw the trailer today. So, what are your thoughts?
Wow, you're setting that up. You're making me wait. Yeah, I mean, first of all, really bad title, right? Like by the end, when we're doing Golden Geeks next year, someone's gonna say Elizabeth Olsen from Love and Death or something like that, and everyone's gonna be like, "What? What movie? Oh yeah, that one." Like that is just not a very catchy or memorable title. But funnily enough, based on like she's talking about her being like a housewife, and the setting is like a few decades ago. I'm like, I was getting WandaVision vibes, and like I'm sure to some extent that was maybe an intentional casting.
Pretty
thing.
sure it's the same set pieces too. Like
yeah, like some
oh
of
my
it, even
God.
like some of the costumes and stuff, like kind of similar vibes going on there. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, Jesse Plemons, I love him as well, and I have not seen him in anything in a good minute. He had like. I feel like there's like a year or two there where I was seeing him in all sorts of things, whether it's Black Mirror or Game Night. And yeah, but like I haven't seen him in anything in a hot minute. So I'm excited for that pairing. I think that looks pretty cool. I'm definitely, I guess, I have questions in a good way. Like I definitely want to check this thing out. This is a TV show, right? As Bubs just mentioned. So like this is something that I will definitely be checking out an episode or two and see how I feel about it. Whether or not I want to go through with the whole thing. Because I definitely have questions in terms of like there's some quick shots here where there's blood all over her face or there's cops involved and stuff like this. And so I'm curious how that interconnects with the greater story here of these characters who are having an affair. Because that seems like a bit of a jump, but I could see maybe some bridges there, so I'm curious to cross them.
Yeah, the what started off as like a very simplistic like yeah, she's just living the daily grind and it's just she wants that kind of change up to her life. I thought, okay, like this is interesting, and she's narrating or kind of like dialoguing her story, and yeah, you see Jesse Plemons, and yeah, it takes that twist where okay, she wants to have that affair. She's very formal about it. I don't get the sense like she's a killer. It says it's based on a true story. I'm wondering what true story. Like I guess we'll find out, but seems
no spoilers on the true story. I want to find out in the show what happens.
Yeah, so. It'll be interesting to see if she does become a killer. She says she doesn't want to hurt anyone, but obviously it looks like we get like a little bit of a posse because some of the guys get together and like bang down the door and stuff like that. Yeah, there's blood. There's a whole dynamic going on and unfolding. So I am very curious what happens. And I think because this wasn't a theatrical movie, was it? I think it was
It's a TV show.
It's a TV show.
Yeah, and I can't remember the streaming service, so let me look that up.
HBO Max, so it'll probably be on Crave then.
Crave it up, yeah.
I imagine. Yeah, I totally didn't even catch that as a TV show. Well, that'll be very interesting then, because that expands this to like 8 hours or like 6 hours or so.
I'm looking at April 27th is the date I just found from a quick Google search, so we'll see if that translates to Crave release date. Usually that is 1-to-1, so hopefully that's the case.
Interesting. I wonder if we'll be reviewing that weekly. If it's up anyone else's alley.
Oh, weekly. I don't know. That's a lot to ask for. We'll see.
Yeah. It's no Last of Us. Oh, not yet at least.
Takes a lot for me to sign up to watch a TV show on a weekly basis. I love a good binge these days, or not even binge, but just like waiting till something's out and then I watch like an episode a day. That's like a nice paced binge for me. Also, I like once again, as Tetris mentioned, the music. I thought the music was really good in this trailer. It was very haunting in a way that both kind of matched what was going on for the tone, but also contrasted it in a way that once again kept me intrigued. So a pretty effective trailer, and I feel like there has been a lot of trailers recently where I'm like, man, I do not care about this. Like none of these things are speaking to me. So I'm glad between this and Tetris, like finally I have a couple things that I didn't really see coming. Now I'm excited about. So it's fun to have some big things on the horizon.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
With that, I think that's basically all of our topics. Yeah. Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, that was a fun one, Taylor. Good one.
Yeah, that was not too shabby. Yeah. Again, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of the Weekly Geek and for listening to us talk about all the juicy MCU content and trailers. We'll be back later this week with GV News episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
a full
that's what
episode.
we
Yeah.
do, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
So
not going to be
until
there, but I
then-
think the rest of us, right?
The rest of
Yeah.
you guys will be there for me in my stead. So yeah, until then, we'll see you in the search bar. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.